A Forest Full of Roses. Chapter 1. Welcome to the island of Sodor. The sight of this big metal sign made the little tank engine puff even faster. As she crossed the large red drawbridge, her driver called out, "Whoa, Rosie! We can't be breaking speed records on your first day." "Sorry," she called back. She couldn't help it. This was the most excited she had ever been in her life. Rosie had been specially built to shunt at a big station. She had heard all about Sodor from the men who built her, and she felt she couldn't get there fast enough. As her wheels grasped the metal of her new home, she was in awe. She had never seen such lush green meadows and bright blue sky as she raced down the tracks. She flew through stations along the line. Passengers and engines alike were surprised to see her. Rosie whistled at every engine she passed, and each one peeped or honked back cheerfully. It was all new to her, and she was eating it up. Eventually, she pulled into the town of Tidmouth. A ginormous station with two big glass canopies came into view. She stopped right outside in awe. Sights and sounds were everywhere, like engines bustling back and forth, passengers boarding and leaving the coaches, the clanking of wheels, the puffing of steam, the peeps and blares of sharp whistles and deep horns. Rosie was amazed. A bit too amazed. "Excuse me?" Rosie snapped back to reality. A big red engine stood in front of her. He looked slightly annoyed. "What do you get at blocking the main line?" James said. "I need to get these trucks back to the yard." Rosie spluttered, trying to form a cohesive sentence before. "Sorry about that," called her driver as he started reversing her out of the bigger engine's way. "She gets a little distracted sometimes." "I see," James grunted. "Just make sure to stay out of the way in future." "Come on, James, that's no way to talk to a new engine." A green saddle tank engine pulled up alongside. He was very small compared to Rosie. By the look on his face, Percy was a bit annoyed at James's introductory skills. "New engine?" James asked as he looked Rosie up and down. And then he realized. "Oh, so you're the new shunter everyone's been asking about," James said. "Welcome to Sodor, and, "Oh, pardon us," Percy cut in. "But we haven't introduced ourselves. My name's Percy, and this is my, friend James." Rosie smiled. She already knew she was going to like Percy and James. "Hi there," she replied. "My name is—" "Rosie!" boomed a voice. A stout gentleman with a top hat strolled over to where the three engines were sitting. "I'm glad to see you arrived so soon. Nothing bad happened on your way, I hope." Rosie didn't know how to respond. "No, sir," replied her driver. We didn't have any issues, sir," Rosie cut in cheerfully. The stout gentleman beamed. "I'm glad to hear that. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Sir Stephen Topham Hatt, or as some call me, the Fat Controller." Percy and James chuckled but tried to hide it. The Fat Controller looked back and smiled warmly at his engines. Rosie was a bit surprised that Sir Stephen would be referred to by such a name, especially by his engines. I'm pleased to meet you, sir," Rosie finally replied, "and I'm happy to be working here." "Wonderful. Now," the Fat Controller continued, "you'll be working with Percy for the next few days to get used to working the yards. He used to work as a shunter here, so I'm sure he'll be able to teach you everything there is to know about being a really useful shunter." Rosie looked at Percy. She wondered why the Fat Controller referred to Percy's shunting career in the past tense. Percy looked to be the perfect engine for yard work. But she didn't mention it. The green tank engine smiled at Rosie warmly. "Come on," he said. "I'll show you around." The two tank engines began to move off before they heard a whistle. "Hey, Percy," called James sweetly. "Could you take this train back to the yards for me?" Percy chuckled. "Anything to get out of some extra work, huh, James?" James went pink in the face and snorted. Rosie laughed too. She was beginning to think she would really like it here. "I take it you haven't shunted before, right?" Percy asked as he and Rosie made their way into the heart of the shunting yards. "Oh, I've shunted before," Rosie replied. "I know how to handle trucks." Percy smiled at Rosie. She reminded him a lot of himself. "Well, at least you know the basics. However, you'll need to learn how to shunt coaches." Coaches. Passenger coaches. Rosie tried to think of a time she ever shunted coaches, but she couldn't. The workshop she came from had only offered her trucks to shunt during her steam tests. Percy and Rosie stopped right in front of a shed full of coaches. "Coaches are nothing like trucks," Percy said. "You have to treat them with the utmost care when handling them." Percy slowly drew forward on a line of wooden bogie coaches. He stopped, barely touching the buffers of the first coach. The fireman hopped out and slipped his coupling chain over the coach's hook. He slowly backed up, making sure not to bump the old coaches. Rosie stared in amazement. Percy did it like it was nothing.
"Oh, can I try?"
Rosie asked, excited. Of course, Percy grinned, and he slowly placed the coaches back in their spot in the shed. Rosie made sure to repeat Percy's movements almost exactly. She slowly pulled the coaches out of the shed and slowly pushed them back in. Good job, he said. Now we need to discuss our trucks. Rosie was puzzled. Your trucks? You mean you have trucks of your own, Percy? Percy laughed. He understood the confusion. No, I mean the trucks we have on Sodor. They're a bit different from other trucks. Troublesome trucks? Rosie asked, staring at the wagon sat in front of her and Percy. Troublesome, yes, remarked Percy. One wrong move with them and they'll give you endless trouble. Take my advice. Treat them with respect. At the very least, don't bump them too hard. They may not give you respect at first, but they'll come around as long as you're nice to them. Rosie saw a glimmer of wisdom in Percy's eyes. She knew these trucks weren't to be messed around with. That train with the cattle van needs to be taken to the mouth of the yard, Percy said. You think you can handle it? Rosie thought for a moment and looked determinedly at the trucks. I know I can. And Rosie puffed forward. Looky here, boys, called the cattle van. We got a little missy working here today. The trucks laughed and laughed. Rosie stood firm, and then she smiled. Good morning, she said. The trucks were shocked. No one had ever said good morning to them. Rosie then pulled them out of the siding and out to the mouth of the yard. Percy watched with his mouth agape. He had never seen someone handle troublesome trucks so well, especially on their first try. Rosie left the trucks and pulled back up to Percy. Told you, she grinned. Rosie soon got the hang of shunting at Tidmouth. Percy was surprised at how easily it came to her. You're doing almost better than I was back in the day, Percy said. This made Rosie beam with pride. Over the next few days, Rosie became acquainted with the other engines who regularly visited the big station. Her positive and cheerful attitude was almost infectious. Cautious at first, both Gordon and James were quickly impressed. Her timely movements around the yard and her lack of practical jokes made her a welcome sight. She made good strides with Duck, the Great Western engine, who was impressed by her shunting techniques and timely manner. She became well acquainted with Murdoch, the quiet goods engine, bonding over all different types of freight trains. Even Donald and Douglas were quickly won over. Yon Rosie's a good sort. Aye, funny little lass she is. That, from the Scottish twins, is high praise. Rosie was enjoying herself enormously. But despite how grand her new life was and how welcome her new friends were making her feel, something felt off. Her driver checked her all over but couldn't find anything wrong. Rosie soon found out what the problem was. Every so often, she would see a big green tender engine collect a goods train and silently leave the yard. She had caught glimpses of his face, but it was nothing like the other engines. It was very sallow and bleak, almost depressed looking. The engine was very grimy. It looked as though he hadn't gotten a washdown in months. Rosie tried to talk to the big green engine, but he always left before she could build up the courage. One of the only things Rosie could find out about the engine was his number. Under the grime, soot, and dirt, she could just make out a number. 3. One evening, several weeks after Rosie had come to Tidmouth, she arrived back at Tidmouth Sheds. The other engines were pleased to see her. Evening, everyone, she said, backing up next to James. Good evening, Rosie, Gordon said. I say, I haven't seen the yards in such good shape since Duck left. Yes, splendid work you've done, Rosie, Duck agreed. The other engines murmured in agreement. Rosie's cheeks went pink. She was happy everyone was proud of her. Oh, thank you all so much. As the engines got settled in for the evening, Rosie's smokebox wandered back to the strange engine. At last she spoke. Do you mind if I ask you all something? She asked, slightly unsure. By all means, Gordon said. Rosie looked around. The other engines were all looking at her.
Well, do you know anything about a big green engine that's numbered 3?
The sheds went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. The other engines looked at each other. Some looked worried. Others furrowed their brows in anger. Rosie became nervous. She suddenly wished she hadn't asked the question. The other engines began whispering amongst themselves. "So do you think we should tell her?" Douglas asked. "I don't think we should," Gordon sniffed. "What do you mean? If she's going to be working here, she should at least know about him," James replied. "And why exactly should the wee lass know about such a horrid engine as him?" remarked Donald. "He's not horrid." "Don't be stupid, James. He's a danger," Gordon said. "It's best to keep her away from such a disgraceful engine." "I'll never understand you, Gordon," James said, rolling his eyes. "Never understand me? You're the one who keeps defending the engine who—"
"I'm sorry,"
Rosie blurted out. The other engines stopped. They were taken aback.
I had no idea it was a sensitive topic."
The engines looked around again. "We're sorry if we hurt your feelings," Duck said. "It's just—" He trailed off. "It's something to discuss, but not now, dear Rosie," Gordon finished firmly. Not another word was spoken that night, and Rosie was still left in confusion.
Who is this big green engine? She wondered. What did he do?